Hi, and welcome to the virtual reality interview series. I'm your host, Nikhil Whitaker-Woody, CEO and event coordinator for the VA World Conference. The purpose of this series is a heart-led mission. We aim to inspire, motivate, and lift the voices of women who have shaped their paths in the virtual and remote world. When it comes to the style of our conversation, we're committed to being authentic, fully transparent, and maintaining an atmosphere of open dialogue and mutual admiration. So, we're not here just to tell tales, but to share our realities. We want to know the highs, the lows, the in-betweens, and the resilience it takes to keep going. So without further ado, and with great anticipation, let's pave the way for this conversation with warmth and an eager spirit to learn. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Our enterprising visionary for today is Miss Tonisha Stalnaker. Tonisha isn't just the dynamic CEO of SVS, but a seasoned systems strategist with a flair for problem solving. Having carved a niche in healthcare and IT recruiting over a decade in corporate America, her signature is her uncanny ability to discern challenges and sculpt solutions. The inception of SVS was born from her desire to amplify her talents, empower other businesses for their growth, trajectories. But Tonisha's vivacity,
You got these words going.
oh my goodness, vivacity extends beyond boardrooms. She's the proud wife of a resolute law enforcement officer, the heart of her two daughters, Rhaya and Gabrielle, a dance fitness enthusiast, and a horror movie aficionado. Whoa. With SVS, she's not just leading, but thriving. Flanked by a diverse and passionate team of women from across the globe, together they're shaping stories of success with Tonisha's unwavering vision lighting the way. So welcome.
Hello.
How are you today?
Sleepy, but good.
I feel you. I didn't sleep last night, like literally at all.
Well, that's past sleepy. That's like delirious.
But I have things to do, so I am working through it all. So my first question is, you touched on it in your bio, but what motivated you to choose this path?
Well, I would love to be one of those guests that has this great story that this was my dream. It wasn't. Let's see, in 2019, I got my master's degree. Also not my dream, but once I started it, I figured I was gonna just keep digging that hole and get it. And so I got it, and 3 weeks later, I got laid off. And in my mind, my plan, and I'm not much of a planner by nature, which is the irony of doing what I do, but in my mind, I was going to work for another year. I used to get quarterly bonuses. I was like, I'm gonna use these bonuses, pay off this student loan. By then, I'm gonna know what adulting I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna do with my life. I'm gonna start a business. I don't know what it is. It's gonna be something. And all that went out the window 3 weeks after my master's. And so I was like, well, shit. Here we are a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving, and I am newly unemployed. I tend to learn from past experiences, and I've been laid off before. So I was like, well, I've done it before. I'll do it again. This time was different. One, because I was married. And two, I was like, I talked to my husband and I was like, so you trust me, right? And he's like, yeah. I said, all right, so here's the thing. I don't want to get another job. I know we had said I would start a business or create something in a year. I need to find something I can create in a couple months because I just don't have it in me to be an employee anymore. And so he was like, well, you're like one of the smartest people I know, so I'm sure you'll figure it out. And so it has evolved numerous times since I first started in January of 2020. Of course, that was before we realized everything was going to get shut down and there'd be a pandemic and all of these things. But the business that I have today is not the business that was there January 2020. And so it's been a constant evolution of learning from what's working, learning from what's not working, focusing on the things that are working and enhancing them. And so it has been a very bumpy, crooked path filled with glass in the street and rocks and dirt and sand in my toenails to get to the point today. It has not been pretty. So
that's good. Way to go, husband. Way to go, husband. A lot of men would be like, huh? You ain't going to work. Like what?
I mean, I'd even offered. I was like, I could get a part-time job. I'd done Uber and Lyft just to kind of fill in gaps for a little bit. I was like, I'll make some money, we won't be poor. But it was definitely a transition to go from being the primary breadwinner, although both of us work. At the time, I was bringing in 6 figures a year. Mm-hmm. And so it was interesting also just the mental transition that had to come with bringing in a set amount of money, mm-hmm. And then having $20,000 quarterly bonuses to now I'm making zero money and have to create it all from scratch.
Cool. So that leads me to my next question. Like financially, what do you think that someone who's starting out should emphasize financially first?
Well, I know that part of the reason I was able to survive the first year was because I have another income in the house. Right. But if I think back to my single mom days where I would have been the only person in the household, I definitely could not have afforded to do it as incorrectly as I did it the first year.
Right.
Because we would have starved to death. So, I jokingly call my first year in business the year of 500, because I think that's pretty much what I charge for everything. Like, you need a staff hire, or like I can recruit your staff, $500. You need a course built, $500. You need me to moderate your whole training program, $500. Mm-hmm. You need me to build out a CRM? Sure, $500. Like, I don't know what happened in my brain, because that was even so much lower than what I'd made in my actual job. And every time I would say 500, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you? What is it from this number 500? And so I literally could not have afforded to have done that if I'd been by myself. I would have had to have actually made a plan, and I would have had to be more strategic. I know that most of the clients that we have, especially that are single, that don't have a guaranteed income, they do it the way that I probably should have, which is to stay at their job, mm-hmm. and build their business on the side until they've built the business to a point where financially one can replace the other. Mm-hmm. That is the perfect way to do it for somebody who's not like, I was about to say, well, balls in, mm-hmm. and, from day one. Then if you have the cushion of having a job to pay your bills while you're building your dream, that is probably going to be one of the better ways to do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. But also too, I like my jobs. I never planned to leave my job. This was just something I wanted to do on the side. I lost my paper. That's what I was looking for. What strategies have you found to be the best to market your business?
Boy, you're asking me all the fun ones. You're literally hitting all the areas that I tend to be the weakest in. So I would say the marketing that has worked for me is things like this. Doing podcasts, doing co-live events with someone else. Because even pre-business, social media has always been like a hit or miss to me. You're either going to hear from me days in a row, or you won't hear from me for months. And even in business, while I understand there needs to be a little more consistency than that, that is not where my brain is. So I've just outsourced it. So any consistency you see on a lot of my company channels is because somebody else is managing it. Shouts out to Amy, because it's just not my focus. But where I put my energy in marketing is to show up here, because I know I'm going to be me. Mm-hmm. And that way people see you'll know from this if I'm going to be a person that you want to work with or not, because I'm going to be 1,000% myself. And so this is where most of my marketing success comes in. I've gotten clients from this because they can say, oh, all right, not only does she know what she's talking about, but she's down to earth, she's blunt, she's honest, and so they kind of get a sneak peek, I guess, before it's time for us to potentially work together. So podcast appearances, co-lives with businesses that make sense to co-live with have been probably my two best, because me by myself on a live or on video it's not a pleasant experience. I think that I've had some of the record-breaking fastest lives ever. By the time I see the eyeballs pop up, I'm probably done. Like, it's like a drive-by. Like, as soon as I see my face on the screen, it's like, oh shit, what was I saying? So yeah, hire us, we do systems, say goodbye,
Yeah.
and then I live and I move on.
Yeah, the fast talking, that's me. What unique qualities do you feel you bring to the community?
Well, one, my bluntness definitely sticks around. I don't know, people, it's funny because people are like, oh, thank you so much for being authentic. I don't know any other way to be. And faking it is not my superpower. So either it's going to work well for somebody or it's not. And I think part of the reason I built the business the way that I built it is so that I have the flexibility and freedom to be 100% me, whatever that looks like that day. Because Tuesday, Tonisha, might be way more put together than Friday, Tonisha. Yeah. So they're both authentic, but it's just day by day. So I think that's one thing that's very different. But then also, while our business focuses on systems and tech and things like that, there is still a high drive for me to make sure that our clients still don't lose the humanity in their business, that they don't lose the client experience focus in their business. And so, yes, I'm using tech, but I'm using tech to make sure that people have a positive experience. I think there's too many businesses out there that charge a lot of money or don't charge enough, but regardless, they're providing the shittiest client experience ever and not paying any attention to it. It drives me crazy. So I've just chosen to use systems and tech as the way to drive positive client experience.
Cool. How do you craft a positive client experience?
Well, I think, and it's funny, I just did a talk yesterday for an organization, and I was like, how many of you have actually gone through your own client experience? And it's crickets. A lot of us build these processes or we just wing it, but we don't ever flip it and either have somebody that we know that's going to be blunt, honest with us, go through it. Like, be my client for the day. What did it feel like? I mean, I've met clients that mail contracts. And I'm like, what do you mean you mail contracts? Somebody actually signs it and sends it back? If you even email me a contract that I got to print out, sign, scan, send back, you've just lost a client, because what you didn't factor in is that I'm busy as hell and I don't have the time or the memory to actually follow all the steps. You need to make it so dummy proof that I just got to click a couple of clicks and be done with the whole process. And so I think one thing is getting our clients to go through their own process and to see it from the other side. That tends to be very eye-opening. But then also being able, because we've worked with so many clients now, we have some receipts to be able to say, and in this industry, this is the method that tends to be most successful. And this is where most of our clients are seeing success following it this way. So it doesn't mean that it's cookie cutter, but it's like, history has shown this way works. So where do we need to tweak it to fit your personality and your business? And where can we add your flair to this experience?
Cool. Yes, I understand you about the clicking and being done with it. Yesterday, I created Adobe Forms with JavaScript. So when you click the signature, it automatically sends the form to me in an email, because I don't have time to play with you and hunt you down for this form. Yeah. So yes, love automation. I know that you are a busy person. You have the children, you have the fitness, you have the husband. How do you handle work-life balance?
That's a trick phrase, I've decided.
It is.
It's a trap. I guess where I give myself the grace to not really concern myself with the work-life balance is reminding myself I am home more than I'm anywhere. As busy as I stay, I still have the ability to get up and walk away from this desk when I need to. As busy as I am, I have the ability, and I have used this ability to sometimes move meetings. When I'm not feeling it, I'm very honest. And I've potential clients. I'm probably a little more willing to semi-fake it for a potential client, but even that's backfired. If I'm 100% not feeling it, then I just cancel the day and move it around. And sometimes I'm pretty honest, like, I don't know how else to say this, but I don't have it in me. It won't be a good call for either one of us if I force this. And I hope you understand, but can we meet like tomorrow or the next day? I just need to shut down for a day. Now, the lack of balance continues because I am a swim mom. I'm on the board of a swim team. I'm on the leadership team for the other swim team. I am a mentor in a program. I'm a business consultant in a business accelerator, and I have my own business. So I do lots of things all the time. But there are some times that when I can control it, I will just hit pause and walk out of my office and into my family room and hit that recliner real hard and just zone out.
Did you have to learn that?
I had to force myself to do it.
Yeah, I did that this weekend. I am going 24/7. I only sleep 4 hours a night. And so this weekend I was like, I'm not moving. I'm literally not moving. I'm not going to get that computer. I'm not moving. But I literally had to force myself to do it because I'm just used to always being on the go. I mean, first I was a single parent, then I was in a career, and now I'm running two businesses. So it's like, how do you turn it off? And how do you make it okay in your head to say, this is okay to turn it off?
I don't know that well, there's a certain level, like somebody just asked me in the networking group that I'm in, they've been getting on me all week because they're like, you are like a few seconds from burnout. I said, yes, I'm aware, I feel it. And it's not even really because of business. It's just because this fall, so many things started at one time, like the mentorship, the business accelerator, the swim, all of that started at the same time. So nothing was ever like settled. And so September was a lot of new. And so I literally shut down on Sunday. Like I sat on the recliner and then a few hours of life went by and I missed all of it. And I just woke up and was like, what just happened?
Right.
And I was like, so what, 15 minutes? My husband's like, 15 minutes, that was a couple hours. You were out, like heard nothing, saw nothing. So I used to beat myself up if that happened, but I'm like, well, that's a sign that my body was like, and we're done.
Yes.
Flip switch, we're off. But I think even though I go a lot, I set certain times of day for certain focuses. So I homeschool, didn't mention that part. So I homeschool. And so there's a certain part of the day where it's a balance of making sure she's got what she needs and making sure my clients and my team have what they need. But every one of my clients knows that by 4:00, you're not my focus anymore. Thankfully for them, there are still some team members on that can take care of them. But then I'm switching into swim mom mode. So if you need me in the evenings, most evenings I'm at a swim meet. If I'm not at the swim meet, I'm at the mentorship program. If I'm not there, I'm at the gym if I'm lucky. And so I've set certain times of day to where I know where my focus is going to shift. So I'm still not sitting still, but I'm not trying to do 16 things at once either.
Right.
I've made sure that each night I carve some time where I can sit on my recliner and like sit with my husband and we'll watch just trash television. Shout out to 90 Day Fiance. And even if we just make it through one episode, I'm like, when, I used to have my laptop sitting in my lap during that time. And I was like, this isn't fair because I've been home with this laptop all day.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, even if I sat with my laptop all night for 24/7 and worked every single minute, there's still going to be work to do the next day. Right. So, I think the first couple of years, it was having to learn some of those lessons, especially as it was causing tension in the household because I was home, but not available.
Right.
So I've just, it's been through trial and error, but again, being very honest, when our clients on board, they get a packet and part of that packet explains when they're going to be able to get to me and when they won't.
That's interesting. Yes, we should always have our connection and boundaries in our contracts. Definitely. And welcome packets to reiterate what was in the contract that they didn't read.
Yeah. But that's helped because I know clients when they're reading it, because they were like, well, I know you're not gonna meet with me on a Friday. I'm like, nope, but what's the next day we can meet? So I always appreciate having clients that also see it. I love it even more when I have clients that have their own boundaries that they stick with, because then they're less likely to press mine.
Yeah.
But it definitely, like I said, lots of trial and error in kind of figuring out what's working and what's not working.
Yes. I have started to carve out 8 o'clock so I can watch Ratchet TV myself. 1 hour a day, I watch Ratchet TV, and that totally resets my brain, and I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
What challenges did you have when it was time to build a team?
Trust.
Mm.
Trusting someone else to come into my baby and like hold my baby, represent my baby, speak on behalf of. That was the biggest thing, was trust. Followed very closely, still connected to trust, with exactly what was I going to trust someone with first? Like, what was the least amount of risk that if I put it in someone else's hands and they crapped all over it, that my business wouldn't completely tank? So that was the biggest thing up front, was trying to figure out that part. Once that happened, it got easier.
That's interesting, because I'm as a single parent for so long, and still parenting. I realize it's not like telling your kids to do chores. I literally have a volunteer team, and sometimes it's like pulling teeth to be like, can you do this? And then I want to take it back, and then they didn't do it in time, so I went and did it myself. And so I'm learning I have to give them grace. I have to understand they don't work like I work, and that is not going to be ready right when I say it's ready. So I'm working on that. We met at the Spring 2024 Call to Clarity Retreat by Tasha Booth. And I've seen you all over the place. We're both in the Meta Leaders group. How important is continued education, community, and investing in yourself and your business?
I would say, if I had to rank them, investing, investing, community, continuing education.
Okay.
Because I think that depending on what the investment is, there's a certain amount of learning that comes in that. And if you're lucky, there's going to be a certain element of community in that. So with the right investment, you might get all three at once. I think that I am definitely I learn better in experiences. I don't take as many courses as I used to in the beginning of business, just because where I am right now, I have to be super, super careful where I put my time in a course, because the fact of the matter is, a lot of courses that are out there are 90% fluff, 10% gold. And I don't have the time to waste the time to get to that 10%. And so I'm really, 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 really discerning when it comes to that type of investment. But like investing in software is probably where I'm going to put most of it, or like things that are going to elevate the business. This year was a heavy investment in rebranding and filing for trademarking for my business and getting intellectual property and protections and the stuff in place. So that investment to me made sense given where we are right now. It's also made me like, all right, well, I'm gonna slow down on this investing for a little bit, focus on the community side. So now my energy is definitely more in community and partnerships.
Yeah. Do you suggest that a newer entrepreneur invest in coaching right away, or is it okay to play the field, figure it out, wing it?
Honestly, I think it depends on the personality of the entrepreneur. I think some of us are just natural leaders, where you could pretty much put us anywhere and we're going to figure something out. Not everybody that runs a business is that way, though. And so if you already are self-aware enough to know that you are not the type that somebody can throw you out in the desert and you're going to find some water, then you probably should get a coach. But with that comes, again, some discernment. I would say when you're first starting out, the odds of you having the first coach be like a home run are not that high,
Mm.
because a lot of us start with so many unknowns that we also don't know exactly what type of coach we need to hire,
Right.
what makes somebody a good coach or a bad coach. So I would say be prepared to have some lessons come through from that first one. Because I my first year to year and a half of coaching was interesting, because the first coach was actually free because she was testing things out. So while I got a few things, it was literally like two people learning at the same time. So she was trying to figure it out. I was trying to figure it out. It was nice to have somebody to lean on with that. The next was a coaching program, because there was a group of people in it. And I want to say it was $3,000. And then I did another spin-off program of this person's, not Tasha's. It was another couple $1,000s. That was the first one wasn't as bad, but that next couple thousand was the fastest waste of a couple $1,000s I think I've spent, because I might have gotten a module and a half into that course and was like, I don't want to do this at all. This is terrible. What the hell was I thinking? And I couldn't get any of the money back. And I'm like, I promise I won't finish his course. I'll never touch this. I'll never offer this service in my business. My brain literally wanted to melt inside itself. Like, this is horrible. Can I shift this to the other program where I actually was a little more active? And they were like, nope, you paid, you're in. And so I just sat in protest in silence in the rest of that year program, because I was like, I absolutely don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. So I think that, understanding how you connect or don't connect to something, really doing the research to figure out, is this program going to be something that if you don't like it, you are trapped? And how, what are you going to do with that? So it could go either way as far as riding it solo. My pricing structure of $500 was heavily based off of me not having somebody to say, hey, idiot, raise your price.
I did the same. I was at 500 for a while until I got a coach, and she was like, you should raise it to 1,500. And I'm like, somebody gonna pay me $1,500?
Now that first year, maybe by the end of the first year, I finally bumped somebody up to 1,000, because I was doing their payroll, managing their CRM. I was doing their hiring, and I was like, the funny thing is, I did these things as an employee and made thousands of dollars a month. And here I am barely charging $1,000. Like, what the hell's wrong with me? Yeah. But I think the eye opener, I know the eye opener that first year was when we did taxes. And I was like, what do you mean? I only made $10,000 really this year, but I was getting $500 from everybody, And so my tax guy, because he'd been our tax person for years, was just looking at me like, what have you been looking at this year in your business? I was like, apparently not my accounting software. I was like, people were making their payments. I just wasn't paying any real attention to it. So there were so many lessons in that first year.
Yes. How do you handle setbacks and keep yourself motivated?
I pause on that one, because this year, I think setbacks was somewhere in the theme. Historically, again, I tend to learn from it and keep pushing. This year, admittedly, was harder, mainly because the investment was bigger. It's one thing to waste $200 to $300. Then you're like, all right, okay, lesson learned. But when we're talking $4,000 or $5,000 and something doesn't work the way it was supposed to for that price, it's a definite, it's a hit, not just financially, but almost to your intelligence and confidence, where it's like, what did I miss to not see that this was going to yield what I needed it to yield? Like, where did I go wrong and not do the homework before I picked this provider or this service or this company or whatever? So I think there's a certain level where you'll get to a certain point of confidence. And then as the investment gets bigger, when there's setbacks, it stings longer. But I just kind of go back to my roots of, I've pushed through again before, I'm going to push through now. It's a bigger lesson to learn. I'm going to carry that discernment into the next choice that I make. to avoid this happening again.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've had a literal week. A literal week. And yesterday I was like so depressed. And one of my friends that has been on my journey the whole time was like, you know that you're almost burned out, you know you have support, you know you can do this, you know, just reach out to your community. And I'm like, but then they gonna know that I don't know what I'm doing. And she
Listen,
was like, you're always authentic, you're always transparent, we know you know what you're doing, and sometimes you don't have it all together, and that's what we're here for. So I definitely preach community when it comes to handling the setbacks and remotivating ourselves.
yep. And sometimes, again, going back to that, hit the reset button and just, or hit pause and go sit down somewhere and give yourself a break from trying to fix it so much, you know. Now, I don't mean like sit on the recliner for weeks or anything like that, but like a day where it's not in your face, you're not constantly reminded of this poor choice or poor decision. It could be the distraction of family, friends, trash TV, puppies, whatever, but taking that time to just get away from it, so that when you come back and sit down at your desk, you have a little bit of that pressure has been relieved, so that you're not still battling, not just because it's not just fixing the mistake or fixing the problem, it's now fixing yourself and resetting your confidence and everything back to what it was before, so that you can keep going forward and keep, growing the business.
Yeah. How do you ensure that your individual growth is not compromised when you're pursuing collective growth? So like you have a team and you want to grow and all the things. How do you make sure that that growth doesn't impinge on your personal growth?
So for me, the way I've built my business is that one feeds the other. So when I grow, the team grows. But at the same token, there's times where my team is growing in their skill set to the point where it's allowed the company to offer a whole new service. When the team first started, I only sold what I could do. So if I could build CRM work, then that's what I did. That's what I sold, was CRM work. If I could work in a certain platform, that's the platform that I sold. That was fine because it gave me the chance to kind of gain some trust in the team. But once we grew to a certain point, I'm like, I have people on this team that can do coding. I have people that can build websites. I have people that can do SEO. And I didn't sell any of those things because those weren't things that I was doing. And so once I decided to take that leap to offer services that I didn't personally do, one, it grew that trust in one another even more, but it's now opened it up to where as they're learning new things, I get to learn it with like kind of in support of them. But same with me, like when I go to conferences or summits and I pull something out of it, or I form a new relationship, they're involved behind the scenes as well. And so the business has really been built to continue to feed one side or the other. When I do my one-to-one consulting or audits or anything, at the end of it, if implementation is needed, it goes to the agency. The agency side, when they're meeting with the client, if they identify something that's new that's come up, or the client has a new program or a new strategy or a new thing that they want to test out, they'll loop right back around to me for me to provide that support. So it's a constant cycle of feeding one another, and it can go in either direction.
That's an interesting example. Sounds like when I go to the grocery store and I only buy what I want because I know if they don't eat it, I got to eat it. And so I don't waste my money.
Pretty much.
Yeah, they don't like that. So how do you feel a new entrepreneur can plan for scalability and future growth?
I think that, and it's funny that we're having this conversation because it was similar to my talk yesterday. As I reminded people yesterday, I think that we sometimes think too small. I think that as in our community, generationally, we've been taught to speak big, but think small. So we might be the loudest one in the room and we might talk a big game, but in the corner and in the back of our minds, the ship only has a couple of things before everything sinks to the ground. So, but I think that even when somebody is brand new, or actually I know even when somebody's brand new, you can start working on scalability from day one. I used to teach like a little mini course on like the 5 systems and automations you can set in day one. And that's as somebody who might only be making a couple $100 a month. These were simple, super cheap, if not free, but ways that you could go ahead and structure your business so that when you got your first client and they paid their first invoice, to them, they're still looking at you like, man, this is a legit business. This is not me sending a request on Cash App for you to pay for my services and me like, mailing you some contracts, if I even thought of a contract, us texting our agreements back and forth, and then I'm upset because you didn't actually pay me on time because there was no structure in place, manually moving information from one place to the other, so I look at all those things like this all can be structured day one. And so that way, when you do grow, because I always tell people, assume growth. Otherwise, why are you in business? If you're assuming you're going to fail, then you're going to fail. So assume growth, and then this way, when you have that structure from day one, when the next level comes, it's not as big of a shift as it would have been if you were just keeping everything in here. You didn't have anything documented. You don't have any real process for anything. You don't have a real system on how you do things. And then now you're talking about hiring somebody and you don't even know how you do things, let alone being able to train the new person on how to do your thing for you. It's that part where we don't tend to think 2 to 3 steps ahead. Like, what's the next step look like? So it absolutely can happen from day one. And it's better for us if and when we put it in place day one, even if it's the simplest automation known to man, if it's the simplest set of tools known to man. A system to me is the combination of the tools, the processes, and the people that run the business.
Yes, I had to learn about that because being that I came from corporate, I had all my contracts in Adobe and, I was ready to go. And, that's just not how it works. I had to get a CRM and I had to learn all these new things that helped me run a virtual business. So definitely understand that. What is some advice that you have for setting realistic goals for your business?
I think looking at your strengths, knowing your strengths, acknowledging and knowing your weaknesses, and seeing, I guess, look really when you lay it all out, are the strengths going to be the thing that make you enough money? Or are your weaknesses so strong that they're going to keep you from making money? One or the other. And kind of making your plan either to enhance your strength or combat the weakness. So for example, my strengths from day one is I knew going in, because I'd talked to friends who had helped their businesses behind the scenes. I'd gotten some information. I did a little research like, hey, what is it that I bring to the table when I've helped you with this project or this event or whatever? And what I kept getting was, you're the person we come to when we need a solution for whatever it is, whether it's business, a project, school, personal, our kids, you're like the fixer. Your brain just works in that way. So I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm calling that, but I'm sure I could make money doing that. Now, on the weakness side, there was a lot of business etiquette, business plan, business structure things that I didn't know. But I knew that my strength in this case was going to outweigh that weakness, at least starting out, and it got me to a certain point to where either A, I was making enough connections to where I could have somebody that I could learn some of those things from to become stronger, or I could maybe hire somebody that could show me how to do it, or join a program that I could go through, like a cohort or something where they could show me how to do some of the things that I wasn't as strong in. But for me, my strengths, I knew outweighed my weaknesses enough for me to keep going forward with it.
That's interesting that you knew that, because I didn't know that. At work, I am a rock star. I know I own it. I know I'm the best at it. But when it came to my business, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know nothing about business. I have no formal business training. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Why am I crazy right this minute? So I had all the feels. And so I never thought of what's the next step. What is my goal? Because I never planned to quit my job. I never had none of that until year 3 and I'm like, okay, I want to start a community. Okay, I want to give back to the community. Okay, I want to do this. So now it's the mindset shift of, okay, I feel a little more comfortable. I'm learning, I'm getting my sea legs type of situation.
Yeah, I think that I guess being somebody who is maybe not a traditional lifelong learner, but a life learner, meaning not that I'm always looking for opportunities to get more education, but I think that lifes us enough in many situations where there's a lot of lessons in education in that too. And I think that going back and pulling from experiences, good or bad, that got me to where I was the day one of my business. I knew enough and was self-aware enough to know what I'd overcome before. And so it was like, well, I might not have like a definitive plan aside from the goal of I need to replace my income that I was making. I don't know how I do it, but what I did know is that I have overcome much worse than this. But I'd also give myself the grace in the beginning. I don't have the same mentality now, but in the beginning, it was like, if this doesn't work, I'll just go back to work. I don't say that now, it's like, oh no, this is going to work. It doesn't, I mean, that I'm not looking at it as any other option. If I have to burn the business down and rebuild it in a different way, I'll just do that. But, the idea of going back to work, and I'm not knocking it for anybody who works a career, but for me, that to me is like kryptonite at this point. So even when I have times like now where I'm just exhausted and tired and beat up a little bit from a crazy year of business, I've called this year the puberty year of business. It still doesn't outweigh the stress that I had when I had to get up and work for someone else every day.
As a woman of color, what unique perspectives do you bring to the table in your business?
I don't know if I can attribute this to being because I'm a woman of color. I think that diversity is very important to me. But if I'm being honest, I think a lot of us use the word diversity and still only want to work with us. I have colleagues and clients that focus on DEI, but then everybody that they're surrounded by is Black. And I'm like, isn't that literally the opposite of what your focus is? So I think that I bring the fact that I am a woman of color and I've had positive and negative experiences related to that. The only real thing that I do say as an outward statement is that everyone on my team is a woman. Are all of our clients women? Most of them, not all. But everybody in the team is a woman because I really wanted to have a safe, comfortable place for them to not just work, but I really just try to drive and build our own little ecosystem. And the diversity of my team was so important to me to have so many different cultures and countries and continents and religious backgrounds and ethnicities and everything in one group. I do think that me being a minority, my eyes were more open to that diversity than they would be potentially in other cases. Example, we build websites. We do a lot of design work, even more designing a CRM. We have some amazing designers in the team, but I can look at somebody's website and almost always tell if it was an overseas company that designed their website. Cause I'm like, everybody on your website's white. You're a Black owned business. Right? They literally got some stock photos that they thought was the American standard for a website and threw that shit on your website without paying any real attention to you or even asking you, what do you want represented on your website? So I think my background being a woman of color is that my eyes are wide open to the fact of, yes, we are different. Yes, we have some similarities. Yes, we are all human beings. But at the same time, we should be able to call things out respectfully. You are a minority owned business. What do you want people to see when they see your business? And being empowered to be able to ask those questions and to have those conversations. And I felt like that was a really long answer.
It was really good though.
I mean, it felt like it went forever.
Yeah, I know for me, I wanted to support women, but I wanted my message to be especially catered to women of color because I knew what I experienced when I started my journey. And I'm not to say that other cultures don't experience the same thing, but I'm making sure my message is to encourage other women of color, even though I totally support all women.
Yeah.
How do you perceive the future of remote work?
I mean, I think it's going to grow more than it's going to cave.
Sure.
And it's funny because I've been remote even when I was working. I've been remote for years before I was laid off. I laugh now because the last in-person position I had, I'd written a complete recruiting strategy on the benefits of a remote workforce compared to the cost of having an in-person workforce and how to maintain engagement and retention and all of those things. And when the pandemic hit, that same company that was so anti-remote went completely remote. And I think that they're majority remote now because they saw the cost savings that they weren't paying rent for 100 people to sit in a building to do work that they all could have done from home, and the increased productivity of the remote workforce because you're home, I can go switch out a load of laundry and come back and do another meeting.
Yep.
I'm not sitting in
They got some
traffic.
stir fry.
Yeah, I'm like, I got a burger in the air fryer right now, so, I mean, I think that most companies, not all, and just like not every employee, there are some people that are irresponsible, but here's the thing. If that person was a shitty employee, they were a shitty employee in the office too. They just were physically around you and you weren't paying any attention. Just
That is so true.
gonna
So,
leave it.
okay, so that brings us to the end of our conversation. To close, I want you to share one piece of advice, wisdom, or inspiration for someone who's about to start their own journey. What do you got?
You should really pack a shit ton of patience and grace because you are going to need it on a near daily basis. As smart and as bright as most of us are, I've met some brilliant people that are not that good at business ownership. They're great at their thing, not business ownership. And so I think sometimes we need to understand that. Does that mean that you shouldn't be a business owner? No, that means that you need to get support sooner than later for somebody that is going to be able to help walk you through that. So that you're not like some of the clients that we've had where they're brilliant and broke.
Mm.
They can't even afford the support they need to scale because they've been so focused on their brilliance. They didn't focus on actually making their brilliance a real business. And so they're brilliant and broke. And so I think that there's some humbling in that from times. And like I said, there's some hard lessons in life. I think that running a business is the next hardest thing. And it's sometimes even harder than being a single mother.
You know what? That is so true. That is so true.
Because, and there's a lot of overlap in that too. The same way that as a single mom, we don't know how the hell we're going to do it. We don't know how we're going to feed these kids, feed ourselves, take care of this, and yet we make it happen. It's that same fortitude we have to bring into our business.
Yes. So I want to say thank you. And I also want to say cheers for speaking with me today. I want to remind everyone that we were not just talking, we were sharing, growing, and reshaping the narrative, and that we should all shine together. And until next time, we'll see you later. Where's my button? I'm gonna edit that out, but